I would not be doing what I'm doing without you. I can safely say that. I just discovered you on YouTube on a random day, and I was like, this person has to become my best friend. And I hunted you down, and we chatted, and it kind of happened. Like right now, I just want to highlight a few of my creator friends who really helped me unlock something and kind of show the value of what it means to have creator friends and how to make them. And I think we want to talk about this topic of how do you grow a video podcast in 2025, or how do you start one? Growing is a whole nother topic, but basically you have a YouTube channel where you talk to climate experts and try to look at ways how we can deal with the situation at hand. And you also show up at events and conferences and workshops with official people. Is that right?
That's right. And it's also changing every time that we talk, because it started off as a YouTube channel. And I think that's also something that you had with Orbit, but it's becoming something much bigger than that.
What we're doing, you could just say video podcast creators, but that's also doing a little bit of a disservice and just like kind of narrowing it down for no good reason.
Yeah. So where do you want to start?
First of all, I just want to let everybody know that the name Orbit for Creators is your fault, or it comes down to you, because that is one of the things that has come out of our connection, friendship. At one point, I had this idea. I want to create this thing that shines a spotlight on interesting creators. That I think that's as vague of an idea as it started out as. Mm-hmm. And first of all, there was the question, do I continue the channel that I had? Do I start a new channel? What's the name? And I don't know, there was so much generic stuff in there. And that was even, I think there was even before ChatGPT was a thing. So it was all just writing stuff down on paper. And yeah, we just had a chat. I think I just showed you the whole list of whatever 50 words on there. And as the way I remember it is you just threw out that word of orbit. I'm like, ooh, that sounds good. I like that word. And it kind of just grew from there. It started Orbit, a home for creators. And that was just like a word or a mouthful. Also, I think it was in particular the Twitter handle, which I'm not even using, that didn't have enough characters for that. So it's just like, okay, Orbit for creators. That sounds good. It's very clear what it is, or at least it's very clear who this is for, I think. That's how Orbit started for me as a name, as a concept. And you were also really helpful in getting the first episode done, because I was like, I tend to like think really big and think about what is the ultimate version of this? And you were just like, hey, film one episode.
Let's do this. Let's create something.
Yeah. Let's create something. So it all grew from there. Maybe I'll just return that question. Like, how did you start this thing? Because I know it's been also in your brain for a long time.
Creators for Climate, the thing?
Yeah.
That's been in there for a long time. And I think it's a culmination of literally everything that I learned from the past decade. So ever since I did my master's, I was like, I want to do something regarding climate. But I wasn't a YouTube. Well, I had a YouTube channel that I made movies with the GoPro, and I was like trying to be GoPro and show my extreme life as somebody who doesn't do shit. So like, let's not get into that. You can find all those videos back.
If you want to know the GoPro story, is actually, it's in our conversation. There's a podcast we did about that.
Yeah. So what happened mainly is during the pandemic, there was this realization of I'm done with all these videos that I was doing as a freelancer. I want to do something more. I want to give back. And I really want to make this shift towards science communication. because that was the reason why I wanted to learn how to make videos and like how I could make
Yeah.
these videos and share what I know about science, but share that with other people. And so that's been stuck in there for a long, long time. The problem was that in the meantime, I had built the YouTube channel Tom's Odyssey, and it's this choice of like, do I leave something behind that I babied and like I built for like a long time, or am I humble enough to say like I just start from fresh and like let's see where this goes? And so that's stuff that we also talked about in that episode, I think.
It's
but
a very common question. Yeah.
Just to put that here in perspective. And so why Creators for Climate really existed there was this shift in me of I'm doing this for other people and not for myself. And so it became less of a validation kind of thing and more of a in service for others. And that's a weird thing to say because like in general, if you might resonate with the term people. Ugh. Um, and so I still do have that feeling, but then also if I'm not willing to make a change, why would I expect other people to do the same? And so that's like the core of why Creators for Climate existed.
What's interesting for me to observe is I feel like we are exactly a year apart in where we are with our projects. Like you actually started making videos or publishing videos on Creators for Climate this year, where I started last year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Did you follow your own advice in like making a test video and then going from there?
Yeah,
or
this is a little bit of the different thing because with this, the podcast was one of the versions of like how we could start a YouTube channel. But there again, it was the same as it was for you, of like figuring things out from scratch. And so we also recorded 1, 2, 3 episodes and then started thinking, okay, what would this look like to post this on YouTube? And what it is now, it's slowly morphing. I'm still on the 5th episode still. But I'm also not rushing this. This first season is, first of all, the theme is like figuring out what your role in the climate movement is. So the whole season has a little bit of a theme, but there's also like some interesting points in there. But it's also just figuring out what the format is and like testing things out. And so I'm not really seeing the YouTube channel as a real YouTube channel at the moment because I'm working towards it. More thinking of I'm building the catalog to then start going hard on the YouTube channel. So it's a little bit of a different viewpoint, I think.
Even with this, where that channel is now, it already enabled a lot of things for you. Or am I misinterpreting
I'm not
that?
sure how everything worked out so well. Like the guests that we got on in the 4th and the 5th episode now are people that I was thinking of like getting on season 3. They're not creators. The people I'm like they're scientists, but like they're good scientists. They know what they're talking about. They've been at the IPCC, the International Panel for Climate Change, for the people who don't know that. So like higher than that, you cannot go.
They're the top authority in that field.
Yeah. And so for them, actually, both of them reached out to me after a call of like, hey, we need people to talk to. That during the first season, while we haven't launched any of the episodes yet, was also like maybe a feeling of, okay, there is something to this conversation. And that like this whole concept of Creators for Climate is something that people want to hear more from, and they're looking for this kind of content, and it's not out there yet.
While you were talking, I was thinking to ask you, how do you reach out to those people? What's your method of, getting guests on the show?
I got both of those on Threads. But this comes really down to, I think, is knowing where that audience is. A lot of them came over from that app to Threads because they were just fed up with the misinformation that's happening there. And like that's a whole different conversation. I'll get into that.
Yeah.
But that meant there was a thriving culture starting on Threads.
And so you were already on there and you were kind of at the right place
It
at the
was
right
just the
time.
right time, right place, and the right question, I think.
That's interesting because that a big question when you do a conversation based format is how do
How
you
do I
get people to
find my
talk to?
people? Yes.
Because, like, I mean, on a completely separate note, there's so many people or so much advice. Is like the easiest channel you can start today is a podcast.
Yeah.
Um, yes, on a technical level, it's super easy. Try recording a podcast for yourself. It's super awkward the first time, or the first probably 10 times. And finding somebody else to record a podcast with. I don't know. Have you ever tried hosting game night? It's difficult getting two people in the
No.
same room or aligned on the schedule. Like it's really hard. So the whole topic of guest selection and
Hmm.
outreach and stuff like that, I think,
And
is
it's
an
also
interesting
like
one.
the guest selection part is also very important because like you can start with your friends, but are those the right people to then propel to the next person that you really want to reach? And so sometimes that combination they line up really great. And I think you reaching out to creator friends made sense for Orbit.
Yeah.
But also a lot of people are starting with, we're starting a podcast talking about my life, and then your friends join, and like it's fun for you and your friends, but what's the value for the other people there? And so that's what I didn't want to do, at least with Creators for
Yeah.
Clients.
One of the things I keep reminding myself of, or like how do you say that? Like a corner piece of my operating system is do what you can with what you have.
Yeah.
When I had that first idea of I want to make a creator based conversation show, did I write down all the celebrity creators I love? 100%. Do I want to get them on the show? Yes, I do. But then it's also like, okay, what is possible? What is the easiest way you can test it? And hey, I know people who do this, who have interesting stories to tell. So why not start there? It's the lowest hanging fruit, and
You
it gives
did
me so much
start
more
there.
flexibility.
You did start there, but there's a little bit of a caveat there because you started reaching out to those people long before Orbit was a thing.
I built those relationships
Right. So
long
you
before
already
Orbit was a
had
thing.
relationships. So it weren't just friends. These were
Yeah,
already people who are in the niche that you're also going for. And I
yeah.
think that is an important part to that.
I mean, that's general good advice. Build relationships long before you ask for anything, and don't even build relationships with the intent of asking for something.
Hmm.
I think it's is
That's also how you get like a really interesting guest on there, like people referring you. And if people can do the introduction for you,
yeah. That is secretly what I'm thinking about. That's gonna happen. That some guest is just gonna be like talking to all their friends. It's like, hey, you have to be on this show. I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe, maybe not. I'm pretty happy with where we are right now. Hey, real quick, if you enjoyed this conversation, if you're learning something, you might also like the Orbit newsletter, something I write every week to help you become a better creator. Every Friday, I share a simple framework or a practical exercise that you can start using immediately, regardless if you are a complete beginner or a seasoned professional. My goal with this is to make it the best creator resource out there, help you see things from a new perspective, give you a little exercise that helps you level up your game. So sign up via the link below. It's completely free, and I would love to have you there because it also keeps you up to date on the whole Orbit journey. How is it going with building a home for creators? What does it actually mean? A little, behind the scenes weekly update. And at the bottom, I always share my favorite things I've seen this week. Good content that inspires you over the weekend. So, with that out of the way, let's get back to the show. I understand for myself that I am a solo creator and I want to do as much as possible by myself. Adding somebody to the team, like actually having them be my employee, sounds fun at first, or sounds like, oh, they can do this and that for me. But I have no interest in managing them in any way. And so, the way I think about team is like people like you, like Nick, like Parker, who are just like, we're just constantly chatting. It's just like, hey, what do you think about this? Can I send you a video? Can I get
Mm-hmm.
feedback? Or whatever, right? And that's kind of my version of a team. Because the other side of that is like really observing what my core competency is. What
Yeah.
am I good at? And what should I be doing? I love to host events. It's really fun, but it's not my core quality. I'm not great at it. It doesn't come natural to me. And it feels always slightly exhausting, although really rewarding. So that's an area I would love some support with. But do you want to add people to the team or not? I don't know.
Like in a perfect world where there is perfect funding, that would be kind of useful. I might say like since ChatGPT, I've found out that I can take on a lot of those roles which I envisioned in the beginning that I would need help
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
to have support. So I think ChatGPT in itself is a godsend for creators,
I
for
would go
solo
even
people.
I would go even further. Like ChatGPT, yes, has been my virtual coworker. I interact with it every single day. But AI in general has enabled so much for me. I can do so much more as a solo
Yeah.
creator.
And it's
Like,
not in a sense of, because I think most people think of this like as generating posts or generating this or that. It's usually the things where you would be like, hey, can you just do this for a minute? And then I will have my editorial
yes,
look
it's
at that and adjust it to my needs.
the way I like to use it is actually as a outside voice
Mm-hmm.
because I find it incredibly difficult to.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue of being a solopreneur
Yeah, when I
in this
work on a
field.
video,
Yeah.
I don't know what the value is anymore. I don't know what are the catchy phrases in there that I could use for a title, or what are the topics of conversation. Chat, here's a transcript. What did we talk about? Oh, oh, interesting. How would that be valuable to aspiring content creators? Oh, interesting. So just like, and fun side note, recently I just took a screenshot of my YouTube channel, put it into chat, and be like, roasted, bro, roasted. The first response was super tame and super like, here's some nice feedback for you. And then I was like, come on,
No,
you can do better. Roasted.
hit me.
Yeah, it pointed out some serious flaws and it prompted me to try a completely different thumbnail style because for podcast creation, I think thumbnails are so incredibly difficult or not. Because recently I came across this idea of either you go into the familiarity route and you just have your podcast artwork that's always the same. It doesn't change. It's not clickbait. It's not trying to entice you. It's just when I see this, I know it's that podcast. Or you do go in that direction of how do I make this as discoverable as possible and make custom artwork for every single episode. So
I
yeah, and
have thoughts on this.
yeah, I want to hear your thoughts, and I just want to say I am trying out or I'm exploring what a familiar setting could look like. That's just a copy paste for each episode. But give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear them.
Okay, where do we start? First of all, I think one of the biggest problems is that when we see a diary of a CEO or we see the familiarity route,
Yeah.
that is the last version, the last snapshot of how they reach this point. And so I think it's very difficult to take what they're doing as like the ultimate way of reaching the people because by now they have the credibility, they have to reckon the awareness about their brand. And so you just know, okay, I see this color, I see this background, and I see this style. I know this is a podcast, and like I'm gonna click on that no matter what. So you cannot just look at that thumbnail and be like, okay, this is a great style to use. It could be a great style. And so one of the things where I've been looking at is also playing around with that familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
But the question for me is more, is this a podcast that I should highlight as this is what the topic is about? or should I highlight this is what the guest is? Because if you have a very high profile guest, it's easy to just throw the face on them on there, and then like the face in itself will bring in views because people want to know that.
Yeah.
But for my part, climate change scientists who are not very into, you know,
Yeah, they're not very present in the
they're not
public.
very present, or at least in the field that we want to be in.
Yeah.
Like just putting their face is not gonna make it. And so the other part to that is like, okay, how can we put the topic out there? But then for me, it comes into this weird section of how do I also make sure that people know from the thumbnail it is a podcast and not just a YouTube video. Because
Yes.
if you make a really nice looking thumbnail and they're like, oh, super excited, and then they just see people talking and sitting down and just having a conversation instead of like a nicely cut edit and knowing what, they're also going to click away.
That's a mismatch of expectations.
Yeah. So that is what I've been dealing with now. And I think the last episode was a really nice combination of that, of like the wordplay, which you can use in your title with the guest in there. And then also still having the background, which highlights that it is about climate.
I like what you said, that it's only a snapshot of the last step, how they got to where they are now. Yeah, because that's what a lot of creator advice out there is.
Yeah.
It's successful people retracing their steps and assuming that is a path to success, not taking into account all the random stuff that happened in between.
And all
You
the
know?
random pieces of luck that also happened in between.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much luck to it.
There are all these new tools out there for checking on thumbnails and
Oh yeah.
the outliers and vidIQ score or
Yeah,
spotter
yeah,
AI,
yeah.
whatever. But I think that's the most difficult part is when you look at these thumbnails or titles, is just having that overarching or that overall perspective of, okay, this is just, it is important, but is one data point of why this video became successful or this brand became successful. And I think that is the difficult part, where we don't always have the data to really understand what's going on behind the scenes there. Like maybe one of those videos got like a huge shout out from one of the guests, and that started the roll up, like the snowball
Yeah.
effect for all the
Yeah.
other videos. And like that could have been like the one thing that made that channel become more available in the algorithm. And then
One of my personal examples of experience is on an older channel. I had a video that was somehow recommended in a newsletter, and that really drove views. All I saw was like the URL of the provider, of the newsletter provider. I have no idea who wrote that newsletter, what newsletter that was. And as a viewer, you also have no indication that's where views come from. So it was totally like a freak thing. Like somebody saw it, liked it, and shared it with their audience. It's like no CTR, no thumbnail has any influence on that, right? So that's just a funny thing I remind myself of.
What I'm actually curious about is, because we've been talking about this before, and it's a little bit further away from this, because I've been testing thumbnails and titles on the conversation, like the actual interview.
Yeah.
But I've also been trying and testing thumbnails for clips of that entire video.
Oh, that's a sore topic for me right now.
And so for me, a few of those actually went really well, where like YouTube started pushing them out. And the style of the thumbnail, with left and right, left the host, right the guest, and then in the middle an image of like what it's
about.
What it's about.
Yeah.
For me, it's really interesting because that is where I get to experiment with showing what that topic was. And so we would have a long conversation in the interview with multiple topics, but each clip is just one topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is interesting because that is a very visual way of showing that also in the thumbnail. And so that aligns a little bit better with, I think, somebody who's just browsing, who's like, what am I going to watch? Oh, this is a topic that I feel resonated I resonate with at least, and it's just 10 minutes, so I can get through this and see if it's something or not. And so some of them work, some of them don't work, and I'm taking my lessons out of that. So I heard you are having different perspectives on the clips.
I don't know how to feel about clips. Originally, when after the first season, it was a very natural thing. Yes, you want to make shorter clips of the long podcast episodes because it's a completely new show. Nobody's heard of it. Make it as easy as possible for people to discover it. And like it's much less commitment, what you said, to watch a 3-minute clip than watch a 30-minute video, right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind it. And at least I had the feeling, I have to say now, that that's what big podcasts do. They put out clips. But now on after the second season, the clips felt really off. They have not contributed in any meaningful way to the channel. They don't, like on long form videos, there's always a comment. There's always somebody saying thanks for this and that. Short form, there's no engagement. And then I look at some of my favorite podcasts, they don't do clips. And actually, the big podcasts, for example, Diary of CEO, Waveform, they do have separate channels for clips. I was like, okay, I did not realize that. I thought we were all just melding everything into one channel and YouTube's going to figure it out. But in that case, it doesn't seem like that difference in length, or I don't know what it is that signals to YouTube, we're not going to show this video. Because I have got messages from people like, hey, I had no idea that you made clips, that they don't show up in my feed. I completely missed all of that. I was like,
so there's actually a setting for that, which I also asked this question on Threads. And so this was interesting because I had a bunch of people come in and say like, okay, should we do this on the main channel or should we do this on a separate channel? And the main consensus was keep it on the same channel. But like I said, there's a setting now on YouTube, and I didn't know it until I had that question, is publish to subscription feed and notify subscribers. And so I've been toggling that off. It's really at the bottom of your video details, just before shorts, remixing, and categories. And so what this will do if you unlist publish to subscription feed and notify subscribers, and what I've been doing is it makes sure that YouTube pushes this out to a new channel, a new viewer base. And so the cool thing with that is you can test with these clips and reach new people to then join your orbit.
Interesting. See, and that's why it's so helpful to have creator friends.
Yeah.
Because they show you little things that you completely overlook and tell you a little bit about the context, how they've been using it.
So we should have this conversation again in 3 months, like next year, and then see if the clips thing changed for you or not.
I'll definitely be exploring that clips option now with that toggled off, but also having the clips on the main channel just kind of creates clutter. So you want to minimize choices. So if somebody discovers the channel, it's better for them to see 9 videos than 19 videos. Assuming. I mean, not assuming.
The question is like, how are they discovering the channel? Are they discovering it through the channel page? Are discovering it in browse and suggested?
There's quite a few viewers who come from the channel page. That might be because I share a channel on social, or because a guest shared it, or they click from a video to, okay, what is this channel about?
How I do it now, and what I got as feedback from other creators who have been in bigger channels and like have grown themselves, is to just on the main feed, like the homepage of your channel, the channel page, to split it up in just 2 separate playlists, one for clips and one as the podcast, as a podcast playlist. And so if people come on, they can straight away go into the podcast conversations, like the longer ones, or if they just want to see clips, they see the clips. And then I think put the one that you find more important as the top one. And so that's something that I'm now seeing is if people start from that playlist as well, like they click on that, they will get the entire playlist on the right. And so I'm seeing more people are now starting to play from the playlist.
Okay.
And so that means people from the playlist, from the channel page come in.
Or is there anything that you've gotten out of having YouTube friends?
What's interesting to me, and you might feel this as well, is for me, it started off as a YouTube channel, but it's become something much bigger than that. And so I feel like I have to build a business of Creators for Climate first before I can fully emerge the podcast. Or at least I had to create the business and the model behind that to also understand what the role of the YouTube channel was inside of that. And so where it makes sense to have these conversations, because the podcast is valuable to me. Like we said in the beginning, it's a way to reach out to those people and also to give back. But it's not my core business, what I'm doing there.
No, that's going to tie beautifully into the episode with Nick, because he has a YouTube channel, but he comes from a business side, and he introduced me to the business model Canvas, which is a tool to map out what is it that you actually do.
Yes.
And so we recorded a session together where we kind of go into the ins and out of that. I think that's going to be really interesting and helpful in that regard. Because you do have to, or you don't have to make a choice, but there are two options, right? The YouTube channel is the business, or it's just part of the business.
Yeah.
And those are very different priorities and very different metrics that you're looking at.
So I'm curious to hear what that priority is for you. I just want to highlight one thing in the middle, and that we don't have to talk about the business model Canvas. For me, that's also been like one of the things in the back of my mind. And so this year was really about finding the partners in that canvas. And so that's why this whole channel has been part of that, but also not part of that. And so, now to throw that back to you.
My focus right now with the canvas and with the business model is really figuring out the revenue streams. Because I've been at YouTube, I can say for 4 years, but not making any kind of life-changing money or any significant money from the YouTube channel, right? And I really want to change that next year. So that's where my attention is. And I think if you go back to our conversations this whole year, I've been very much thinking about the business side of things and the economic side of things. But I feel like I keep avoiding a statement you're making, a question that you're making about like it's become something more than just a channel. Which, that's a very true statement. I see the YouTube channel just as the door sign that is on the street to signal this exists. We're making cool stuff. Come inside and check it out. And that making cool stuff can take many different shapes and forms, and that's where the paradox of choice can come in. And you're very quickly like, I want to do 1,000 things. What should I do? I feel overwhelmed. I'm going to stop.
That's a little bit of what this has been for me this year. But I've allowed myself to try a lot of those different things. Comes also back to the start of this conversation of like, which role do you want to play? Because then you can start eliminating the things you don't want to do. And so one of the things, for example, that came out of this whole thing was I did my first facilitation session recently, where it's like really facilitating with science communication, like what should we talk about here? And so it's kind of a coaching session, but also not a coaching session. It's more like getting the feedback out of the people. I love that. And I wouldn't have been doing that if I didn't try to also make it part. And so that I know will be a package going forward as like a revenue stream, which also ties into the YouTube channel because like we're doing what we're preaching to the people?
I guess my version of that is that there's more and more creator specific software or tools. And I find myself often in conversation with those founders being like, I want to build something dedicated for creators. And I'm always just say the word creator and like, yeah, let's make a call. Let's just get on it. So I find myself in a lot of conversations like, what would you like to see? What do you think would make this successful? And so
I think that's the interesting part of not having a YouTube channel that pops up straight away. You start making something and like, okay, I'm just gonna go all in on YouTube and like this is my
yeah,
life now, because it allows you also to see you zoom out and you see like the bigger picture, and you have to come up with these structures, but in that you find also like what I think what's the beauty of that whole building a business with YouTube is.
and it also reflects a trend in the media landscape as a whole. I think what you don't quite realize as a regular consumer is that the media has always been advertisement driven.
Mm, yeah.
Going back to the very first newspapers, there's ads in there, or there's somebody putting money into it to promote a certain cause, ideology, whatever. And those priorities are shifting. All the newspapers, all the traditional media houses are looking for alternative ways to make money because advertising makes you dependent on other people and their priorities, and that can shift. And so I think that's the same for creators. You want to, if you have a channel that pops off, it's super easy to say, okay, money from YouTube, brand partnerships, I'm set. Great. Gravy train.
And then YouTube stops promoting your videos, and then you're now
Yeah.
what?
Or you've done the same thing for 3 years and people get tired of it, or it's not the trending topic anymore. Like, I'm sure if you made, I don't know, if you had a channel talking about Game of Thrones, it was hugely popular for whatever 7, 8 years, and now who gives a crap? And that's
Should
true
do
for,
something about D&D. Apparently that's a good thing to make videos about.
you can make any, dare I say the word, niche work, but the key is that you have to be invested in it. I could start a crypto channel, but that would end within a week.
I
you
wouldn't see
know,
you for a crypto bro, man.
I could become a fully ChatGPT generated VTuber selling crypto scams. Could probably make a lot of money. Actually, okay, I'm gonna give you the inside scoop, and I'm deciding the edit later if this makes the public appearance. But one thing I wanna
You're becoming a beauty influencer.
know, here's a project I've been thinking about for the better part of this year, and I just want to test it to get it out of my system. It's a music channel.
A music channel.
Yes.
I'm not going to say anything. I think it would be interesting. The only question would be, do you have the bandwidth to test it out? I'm all for creative ideas and like testing things out. But on the other hand, how does it tie into what else you're trying to do?
This is great. This is great. Going back to testing, because when I committed to giving this idea a shot, I was immediately, okay, cool. Let's create an A/B test. Let's create 2 music channels. One, same music. One has real life footage filmed with a camera, and one has AI generated artwork.
Mm-hmm.
The AI generated artwork is much less effort than the real life captured image. And so I filmed one video, but also it showed me there's so much more effort to make that.
Yes.
If I go down, hey, AI artwork playlist, I could probably make a video every week, even in the busiest of times. Or I could easily batch that in one day and just make 4 or 5 playlists. Easy. So I think I'm going to scrap the idea of A/B testing it versus real footage. But yeah, this idea of creating a music channel has just been lingering in my brain, and I really want to try it out.
Okay, so are you going to tell us what it's like, what the channel is going to be, or are we just going to see it magically appear and then know
I think
if it's
releasing this video would be a great promotion for it. Just like, here, check out, wait for it, music for creators.
Oh boy.
Keeping it in brand, man. Keeping it in brand.
It's on brand. It's on brand. All right. Okay, I'm curious.
Anyways.
Yes.
Tom, thank you so much for this chat. This was awesome as always. I really enjoyed it. Cool. Where can people find you? What's the best way to stay in your orbit?
If people want to know a little bit more about Creators for Climate, if you're just interested in podcasts and you like listening to people talk for an hour, especially about topics around climate change, and you're also wanting to figure out what your role is in this whole movement, you can go on the YouTube channel, Creators for Climate, the podcast. You will find it anywhere on Spotify. And other than that, if you want to just chat and talk things about the climate, you can hit me up on Instagram, also at Creators for Climate, or hang out on Threads. It's interesting on Threads. It's cool to have conversations there.
That was my conversation with Tom. As you can see, it got a little bit dark out here after we stopped recording. We chatted for a little bit longer, but that's how it goes. If you're new here, my name is Valentin. This is the Orbit for Creators YouTube channel. And right now with this season, I'm highlighting some of my YouTube friends to show the people that have helped me unlock something along the way. They might not be rockstar creators or have made it, if you want to say it that way, but they've been really helpful in me becoming a creator. And I just want to show what those conversations feel like, what these interactions can unlock for you. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit subscribe. And if you want to become part of a creator community, check out the link below, because early next year we're gonna launch something special that might be interesting to you. So sign up for the waitlist and be the first person to know when that's ready. With that out of the way, I hope to see you in the next one.
We're going to look through the business model canvas that you've created. Fantastic. Show me the money. So we're talking about evidence now, and that's going to give us a really good idea what you should be doing for the next 3 months. YouTubers need to think of themselves as business owners, and this session is going to help you understand what it looks like when we apply this tool to YouTubers and content creators.